IRS wage garnishment, how to stop it fast. Is the IRS taking money out of your paycheck right now, or did you just get a letter warning that they will? Don't panic, but don't wait either. In the next few minutes, I'll show you what an IRS wage garnishment is, how it starts, and the fastest ways to stop it. I'm tax attorney Chad Silver, founder of Silver Tax Group. I've been practicing tax law for 15 years, and it's the only thing my firm does. We live and breathe tax defense. Our promise is simple. We build it, we submit it, and we'll defend it if necessary. My team has helped thousands of taxpayers keep their paychecks and resolve IRS debt the right way. What is an IRS wage garnishment? A wage garnishment is technically an IRS wage levy, and that's when the IRS orders your employer to send part of each of your very hard-earned paycheck directly to the IRS. It continues every pay period until the debt is resolved or the levy is released. How much can they take? Well, the IRS uses a table, and sometimes they get this wrong. If you want to find it, it's under publication 1494. They'll leave you a small exempt amount based on your filing status and dependents. Everything above that goes right into the IRS coffers, often a large chunk of your take-home pay, and it stings. How does it start? Garnishments don't just miraculously appear out of nowhere. There's a sequence of letters that come before the actual garnishment. CP-14 letter, which tells you got a balance due. That's followed by a CP-501, CP-503 reminders. Then it gets to a more serious notice, which I've talked about before, called the CP-504 intent to levy. Then there's an LT-11 and an LT-1058. These are final notice of intent to levy letters, and usually they're certified. If you don't respond within about 30 days of the final notice, the IRS can send a levy to your employer. Once your employer gets it, withholding usually begins with your next paycheck. Who gets hit the most? We most often see wage levies on W-2 employees with steady payroll, nurses, teachers, Google employees, manufacturing and retail managers, government workers, tech workers, and corporate professionals. If you're self-employed, the IRS can't garnish your wages, but they can levy bank accounts and even your account receivables. Real client examples. Example 1. Client came to us with a wage levy on a $180,000 tax balance. Over $1,100 was coming out of every paycheck. We moved immediately, secured a same-day hold based on economic hardship, filed the required returns, and negotiated a partial pay installment agreement. The levy was released within 48 hours, and we saved him tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the case. Example 2. A single parent with a balance of $28,000 had a new levy that left too little to cover rent. We provided the hardship defense. We obtained a currently non-collectible status and got that levy released immediately, protecting her paycheck while we built a longer-term plan. Results vary, but fast and informed action makes a huge difference on what the IRS takes from you, because in a lot of cases, the amount's incorrect. In a lot of cases, we can get the levy lifted almost immediately. How to stop an IRS wage levy garnishment. Here's the playbook we use every day. Open the letter and note the deadlines. Find your final notice date. Look at the letter about your rights and options, which hinge on that 30-day window. Gather proof of your reality. Recent pay stub, last 3 months of bank statements, rent, mortgage, utilities, insurance, childcare, medical IRS notices, and your last 2 tax returns are very important to have. Make sure you're in compliance and file any unfiled tax returns. The IRS will rarely release a levy if you're not compliant in your tax filings, but that also means you may end up more money if you have unfiled tax returns and file them. Pick the best resolution path. There's an installment agreement, which is an affordable monthly payment plan, and this is often a quick route to a levy release. There's the currently not collectible CNC hardship. If you can't afford to pay, meaning your expenses are greater than your income, there's a hardship release, and that's effective as well. There's also an offer and compromise. You can potentially settle your tax obligation for less. This takes a lot longer to process. And the other thing is the IRS doesn't grant these very liberally, even though it's advertised heavily by tax resolution companies. There's also the appeals route. If you're within a deadline, there's a CDP hearing, also called a collection due process hearing, and that can pause enforcement until you get a date with someone who knows what they're talking about. If you miss that deadline, there's the CAP appeal program. That's a collection appeals program, which may help. You get the letter and you're thinking, wow, I don't agree with it. Something's got to be wrong. Well, in most cases, that's true. You can dispute the balance, but in order to do that, you really need to prove it with an amended tax return. And that's where you get a chance to correct the IRS errors and support it with supporting documentation to prove it up. Right now, those amended returns are taking a really long time to process. And sometimes you got to call the IRS and call again and again and again until you get an agent who's actually going to talk to you about it, because a lot of them don't want to work with you. Once the resolution is in motion, you got to request the levy release, and the IRS is going to verify your compliance. Now, here's where I usually push for a formal levy release to stop the paycheck hits as soon as possible. I want them to fax a levy release right to your employer, and I want a copy, because sometimes those faxes don't get to your employer. Now, once you've built and put all this in place, you've got to follow through. You've got to make the first installment agreement payment on time. You've got to keep your filings current, and you got to respond to IRS requests quickly. Common mistakes to avoid: waiting it out. Garnishments don't disappear. They keep hitting each paycheck. They don't just stop. Another thing, don't agree to a payment plan you can't afford. You'll default on it, and the enforcement comes back stronger. I see this all the time. The IRS agent will muscle you into a payment plan that they think is reasonable based on just your top line income figures, which they have. Ignoring unfiled returns. Don't wait. No compliance equals no release. So if you've let this build up for a while, the letters are stacking up, and you know you've got unfiled returns, or you're not sure, you got to get a copy of your master tax file, which will show if you have any returns. It'll also show the penalties, interest, and the total amount you owe. Some people think, well, I'll just quit my job. Look, if you go around quitting and job hopping, it doesn't fix the tax problem, and it can make it worse. Here's a quick checklist that you need to have ready if you're going to deal with an IRS agent and do this yourself. You've got to have your deadlines in place, know your dates, because you don't want to wait on the phone with the IRS for like an hour or two only to find out that you blew a deadline. You got to have your three most recent pay stubs and 3 most recent bank statements on hand. You have to have proof of your essential expenses. So that's like a rent payment, a mortgage payment, insurance payments, bills that you're paying every month. They want to see 3 months of substantiation for these payments. And you're going to have likely a invoice and a matching debit from your bank account or a cash check. They're going to want to see it. They're going to see the proof that it matches up, not just that you have the expense. And then you've got to be the one that actually pays it. You also want to make sure that you have your last 2 tax returns handy. And if you have any unfiled tax returns, you better have those prepped and ready to file. Sometimes the agent will allow you to fax them to them while you're talking to them on the phone. Now, that fax process is tedious. It takes a very long time for faxes to get to the IRS. So be prepared to wait. Here's the thing. At Silver Tax Group, this is the only thing we do every day. We specialize in tax. We stop wage garnishments every day. We'll review your notice, build the right strategy, and contact the IRS for you and push for a levy release as fast as possible. So if the IRS is taking your paycheck or is about to, don't wait. Call Silver Tax Group at 855-900-1040 or visit silvertaxgroup.com. Our 24/7 live chat is standing by. I'm Chad Silver. I'm a tax attorney, and I'm the founder of Silver Tax Group. We'll build your defense, we'll submit it, and we'll defend it if necessary. Please like and subscribe for more tax relief tips. Stay informed, stay protected, and I'll see you in the next video.